master coach. She's coached me up quite a few times, and I've enjoyed it every time. Really appreciate having you back on the show, Miss Lila Smith.
Thank you so much for having me. Ooh, I like that. I've coached you up.
Yes,
Better than
you
coaching
coached me
you
up.
down. Who wants to be coached down?
Nobody,
Right.
certainly not me.
I hope everyone
But
I coach is coached up.
yeah, you coach me up every time. It's always good. And look, I see we're definitely live and well online. We're on LinkedIn. We're looking
Hey,
good, Lila. You're looking great. So
thank
I'm ready to
you.
get
Hi,
right into our
LinkedIn.
yeah, ready to get right into our discussion. Guys, let us know where you're signing in from. What city, what state, what country? Where are you coming from? And have you ever thought about this subject? I mean, I don't know if you follow Lila. If you're not following Lila, you should. But she was talking about a really cool concept, which is the moment before and how context creates connection. And so we want to talk about that subject today. I found myself in that moment without really thinking about the context of the moment and getting so caught up in my head, and I'm trying to just transmit my message, not realizing that by me not thinking ahead, it actually could not. It actually made the connection not as good as it could have been. I guess is a good way to put it. So I do think it's timely. I think this can help us grow in our business. This concept could help us grow in our career, and it can also help us grow our network of influence as well. So I think this Growth Monday can actually, I think, affect all three areas of what we cover on the show, Lila. So give us, like, where did you come up with this concept? Where did this come from? What's the metamorphosis of it? And then we'll kind of get into more of the blocking and tackling of it.
So I was an actress professionally for 10 years, really mostly in theater and in New York City and on some tours around the United States. I think I performed in something like 100 US cities. And in each city, for each show, there's there's a lot of expectation of the actor to do honor to the character that we're playing. That is kind of our whole job. And that means that the second that the actor comes on stage, the audience gets to see them full. Like you're full of this character from the second that they see you. And that means that before you walk on stage, you have to create a moment that's not in the script, that just exists for the actor in that character, in that moment. Where are they coming from? Who were they just talking to? What just happened that made them feel something or experience something? And then their entrance means something. It's colored by wherever they're coming from. You've seen some great entrances on TV. I'm sure there's like every time Kramer entered on Seinfeld, there was some kind of like you knew he was in the middle of something. But then when you think about everybody else who came in, they would have their own entrance. They would have like it was cold outside, or they were frustrated from a traffic cop, or they entered with news you could not believe, and they were full of that news. They had already heard it. It wasn't like they entered the scene and then, oh, by the way, right? So it's much more high impact for the actor to be full of that moment. And so this moment before thing, if we're considering that the other people we're in scenes with, in real life, have also had a moment before they got to wherever they found us, then we start to see them as that full character too. And that's where we get that context that creates that connection just by seeing them as human in their whole life, not just in the moment that they come across us.
Love that. And when you said that, you reminded me of what was his name on Friends? Not Friends. Jerry Seinfeld, Kramer.
Mm-hmm.
Kramer. When
Yeah, yeah.
he come in,
you know?
but it was well thought out, right? They well thought out that interest as to when exactly he was going to come in, what he was going to say. I'm sure there was a lot of intentionality behind that.
Oh, yeah. And I'm sure he did a whole bunch of them. And he probably had to do it differently every time because I bet every time he would come in, the other actors had to break character a few times, which means that you see the actor, not the character. When you see
Right.
the actor laughing at something the other actors do, that's called breaking character.
Love that. Okay, so I want to kind of break this down in a kind of real life example.
Hmm.
Um, I'm about to make a phone call, or I'm about to pick up the phone and call maybe someone I don't know. Maybe it's a client I don't know that be a prospective client, or it's someone I know. What are some processes I may go through mentally to help prepare for the moment before, right before I actually get them on the phone? What are some things I
Yeah.
can do there?
So let's talk about a prospective client, right? Because I think a lot of people make sales conversations happen, whether they're on the phone or an email. So thinking about just, a prospective client, and ideally what you're picturing is a moment that they might have had that you can address and use as an example in your conversations. And the best thing to do would be to pick a moment that you think could be the straw that breaks the camel's back before they buy your services, right? So let's picture. So let's say it's for you. What would be one example of a story that could happen, some kind of frustrating moment that they experience, that when they get on the phone with you, you could say like, "Hey, has this ever happened to you?" And they'd say,
Yeah.
"Actually, it has."
Yeah. Okay. So I would say what that would be is they just came out of a meeting, or they just got a kind of a light little scolding, if you will. That, hey, listen, we're short staffed on these nurses. We've had this job out forever. We're not getting enough hits. We're not getting enough candidates for this thing. What are you going to do about it? What can we do to fix
Ooh.
this? And they're a little frustrated.
That "what are you going to do about it" moment, like hearing that question, right? So imagine that the moment before someone gets on a call with you, they've just heard, "What are you going to do about it?" Now that moment becomes the moment that the hero enters. I mean, and I know with StoryBrand, we're not supposed to see you as the hero, but you're going to be the hero for this person in this day.
Okay.
The guide is the hero to the hero. So you enter this conversation, and thinking about that conversation that they might have had, you can kind of ask around that moment. So, what kind of conversations have been coming up about how long this role has been open for? I see that it's been open, or it's been listed for, the last 2 months. What kind of conversations are happening? Are other people coming to you with ideas of different things that you could do? And usually the answer to
Ooh.
that is going to be no. No one's coming with suggestions. They're just coming with the finger point. They're coming with the blame, and it puts them in that moment. Or on the other hand, you get to hear, "Oh yeah, here are suggestions that people have come up with," and then you get to ask, "Well, why haven't why haven't those worked?" And then you hear either they don't have time to try them, in which case, there you are as the solution. So it's
Right.
like that. You think about that conversation, and you can kind of build your conversation around the moment.
I like that. Um, okay. So here's a different scenario I'll come up across. Maybe you can help me with this, if I can prepare the moment before the moment. Is, let's say they've gotten that phone call and they feel like they have some solutions, right? That they think could fix it. But I've already seen that play and I already know how it ends.
Uh-huh.
How do you approach something like that? I'm curious. How would I mentally prepare? Because I love that last question you said, was how those conversations have been going, what ideas you've been getting, that sort of thing. I love that. But how would you handle that situation?
Picture that other moment too. So let's practice. Okay.
Okay.
Let me say one example of how someone has tried a solution that you offer, that you could offer again and have different results. So give me one example.
Oh, okay. So here's one we get a lot. Hey, you know what? We've done video in the past.
Okay, great. We've done video in the past. And then what's your next question usually?
Okay, great. So how did it go? And
Hmm.
am I asking maybe how many videos did they make? Was it just one video? Was it several videos? How long ago were the videos? Was it recently that you created the videos? And then after you created the videos, what did the numbers look like? What are the analytics like? What was the response? Did you get a lot of folks who were responding to it? And that would kind of help me to set the stage for where I would go next. So that's kind of what I do naturally, I guess.
Okay, so there are two approaches for using the moment before in this specific scenario that you might want to consider. One is you could have probably seen that company's videos before you got on this call. So that if they said to you, "We've tried video in the past," and you're selling video services, it's on you to create that context by doing research on what video they've already used, what's out there. Do you have critique of it? Do you have any kind of like before and after examples of how other clients have used your services and then had it look and perform differently? Do you have distribution suggestions or things like that that might help? So coming prepared, thinking about like, I actually know what happened before. So actors, when we're approaching a script, we're thinking about creating a moment before, but we only do that if we don't know that the scene before ended on the other side of this door and then we enter. If there's already information there in the script, we're using it. So go and find first what's out there already, what you already can know. And then if it's not out there or you don't know and they surprise you with this, they say, oh, we've tried video before. Then you try to imagine a moment of feeling that that video underperformed. So what are the signs of that? What are the signs of a video underperforming and what does that feel like? Is it embarrassing? You know, speak to what kind of moments people have told you, envisioning them, and then talk about that. So let's try it now. You know, we'll just role play and I'll say, we have tried video before. It does nothing for us. The videos just kind of like don't get any views. And, you know, nobody mentions it. You know, we put up, I'll just say we put up like 10 videos, you know, during one of our hiring sprees for summer roles or whatever, last year. Didn't do anything. We didn't get any views on the videos and it didn't move the needle for us. So create a moment and you can work through this with me now. Create a moment of when they said to themselves, this is not working.
Okay. All right. So, I guess some other questions come to mind. This is okay. I have to think of it from two scenarios. Have I seen the video, or if I haven't seen the video? In a lot of cases, I have seen the video. So you know what? You guys did a great job on the video. I actually did get a chance to look at a couple of them. There are some observances, some things I observed when I watched the videos that may perhaps help the next time. Or I might go, if I haven't seen the video, what I could say is something to the effect of, you know what, we had the same experience. When we first started doing videos back in 2016, we would play these videos and we would just hear crickets. No one was playing them. We didn't even get that many views. So we went back to the drawing board. We asked several people in our audience, like in this case, as nurses, we asked them what did they want to see in the videos. I also shadowed people and did interviews with them to see why they weren't clicking on certain videos. And there was a couple of things that came out of that were shocking to me. They were pretty easy fixes, but these are the reasons why they didn't watch the videos. That might explain what some of those things were.
Yeah, that's great. And you can have materials created for both of those scenarios. So if you've seen those videos before and you have someone on a Zoom call or something, you can share your screen or share a slide where you've already done the audit of their previous videos. And you can point out with screenshots here, examples, this is what that is, give it away. Because people aren't going to just like write down all the notes and then all of a sudden they're going to go and like reproduce all of their videos and give it a shot. What they're going to do is see, you know, you've taken the time on their account to understand what they've done before, and you already have a slide with all their solutions. In the case where you haven't seen their videos before, but you do know the industry, you can custom tailor a checklist, you know, and you can also have an infographic. Here are the things that we found, you know, visually display like what nurses say they want, what we thought they wanted at the beginning versus what they actually wanted, and show that visually in some kind of infographic that you can also send them and follow up after.
I like that. That's awesome. Okay, so guys who are watching, we're talking about the moment before. So before you're about to make that phone call, before you're about to have that big presentation, before you're going to go to that big networking event, before you're going to do any type of connection with someone, what are some ways we can mentally prepare for it so we can be more ready for the moment? Lila's been giving me some great feedback on my situation, but I want you to be able to apply that to your situation. And so one of the ways I was thinking, Lila, we could kind of break this down from what I've heard so far is, first of all, think about where your particular prospective person is, whether it's a client or a prospect, whoever they are. Think where they might be, what they may be experiencing right before my interaction with them. That's the first thing I want to think about. Is that right?
Yeah. It could be as simple as, let's say, you're in an interview, right? Like the people who are coming on to, and now most interviews are virtual, right? So like what happens the second before they came on a Zoom call? Maybe their dog was barking and they got, you know, a call I can tell you that the second before I came on this call, I was like trying to figure out which platform we were on or what was going on with headphones or sound. And so one thing that Rollis always does when I join him on a show is he does a really nice job of bringing me away from a moment that might be stressful in any way, giving me a moment to kind of collect myself while he says nice things about me. So when he introduces me, he's like, "Oh, Lila's, coached me up and she's so great." And during that time, I'm moving in that transition space from this might have been hectic to I'm providing value for Rollis's audience. And in between, Rollis is building that bridge. He's creating the space where that connection can really occur by acknowledging what it might have been like beforehand and then creating what's necessary to bridge me into the space where he needs me to help him and you get the best out of our interaction.
Absolutely. Wow. Well said. Okay. All right. So we're thinking about the other person. And I love
Yes.
earlier how you talked about think about some things that might have possibly been said to them recently, maybe even right before my interaction with them,
Mm-hmm.
that has some relevance to whatever I'm about to talk about. And how would it actually makes me think about how I would address it a little bit differently. Instead of just coming at it straight from my standpoint, I'm thinking about it from their perspective first, which I love that. I'll give you one example. I had someone send me a direct message through LinkedIn just the other day, and they said, how would you feel if I could fill your inbox with new leads up to like I think you said 25 or 100 leads a week? How would you feel? And the first thing I was thinking of, I would feel overwhelmed. That's too
I know.
much.
I was just thinking that too. I was like, oh God, get out of my inbox. Yeah,
I'm
I
thinking,
actually have my away message on LinkedIn now set up to like, if you are actually here to try and work with me, please email me. Oh my goodness.
so and
Yeah.
I answered him back, and I was just honest. I said, "Wow, I appreciate the outreach, but that just sounds like that sounds
Homework.
overwhelming, to be honest."
Right. And you know what? If
um,
they had instead sent you, I see that you're working on this open role, or I see that you work with hospitals such as this. I see that you work with medical and healthcare systems such as this, or you've had guests from this organization on your show before. Um, what if I could reach out to this person for you and get their business for you, or get
yeah,
them interested? If someone actually made the effort to mention someone specific instead of
yeah,
general leads. One, it builds trust better because it shows that
yes,
they've done the work. But two, it gets you much more interested in what it takes
absolutely,
to get that person. And that's where that moment really is helpful, is in imagining the specific. Because in
yeah.
general, you're just kind of throwing things out and putting the work on the audience to make them imagine and apply their scenarios. So if you include a moment that you imagine, it's much more easy to connect around the idea.
Absolutely. I'm totally guilty of this too, guys. This is stuff that I've done, right? Even though that was done to me last week, I've done it to other people where I didn't think in the moment or the moment before about what they may be facing, not realizing that what I'm offering to them is totally not something that's attractive to them. I may be offering something that for them, it's just like another thing I've added to their to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I already got too much to do. Here you are going to add some more to my list.
Right.
you know,
You
so
come
I
to a
love
bunch of
that.
my workshops, and sometimes you just find them on your own and sign up. But there have been times when I've reached out to you and said, I think you should come to this one, and here's why. And I don't
Yeah,
use that same here's why for everybody unless I'm sending out, a marketing email to my list. But if I am, I'm including specific examples of moments. You'll always see those in my emails. Natasha, who helps me write them, is very good about making sure that I give them to her, or she creates them that include these examples. So one
absolutely.
example is the Recommend Better workshop that you just attended, where we talked about writing better LinkedIn recommendations. And so
Yes.
I reached out to somebody who ended up coming. I said, the last recommendation that you wrote for someone on LinkedIn was in 2018. Has it really been 3.5 years since you've found value in anybody's work? Or are you just overwhelmed by this process?
Right.
If you need a jump start, why don't you come to this workshop? And just that, like referring to the moment, and also to what it might be, what might be the block by the process. Did you find yourself thinking, oh, I should get to that, but I don't have a lot of time. Oh, I should get to that, but like I've got other things that are more important. And so thinking about that moment before I do my outreach to say you should come to this, and using that example in the conversation creates the connection rather than a sale. And then people
Yeah.
end up buying something that actually is valuable to them, because I'm not just selling it to everybody. And that's why they
Yeah.
sell out so fast.
That I tell you, it's very effective what you do, Lila. And because I don't, it doesn't feel. First of all, it feels like it's more customized to me, and it
Yeah,
doesn't feel pressurized. And I think that reflects where we are now because, for instance, your experience and my experience on LinkedIn are different because
right.
we have different connections. We look at different things on LinkedIn, and so we have a different experience. So people have become accustomed to being catered to on an individual basis. So if I go to
Hmm.
Amazon, same thing. I go to TikTok, same thing. By the way, Gabe says, hello, folks. One of my favorite people, Lila Smith.
Hi, Gabe.
Good to see you, Gabe. He says, this woman has been a big influence on my journey.
Oh,
Wow.
and he on mine. He came to my last in-person beta workshop in Dallas before the
Oh,
pandemic,
nice.
when I had a bunch of people together in an actual room to try out one of my workshops that I then ended up taking virtual.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Gabe's a great guy. He does a lot of stuff for the live streaming community too. So I
he
appreciate what
does.
you do, Gabe. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, what was I talking about before that? I was on a point there and I forgot. I don't remember what that
We're talking
was.
about how people have gotten used to customization
Oh
of
yeah,
their
yeah.
experience.
Yeah, so that's why I felt it was so good. And so what you talked about in the course the workshop that I went to is making that LinkedIn recommendation so good that they just have to post it on their thing, right?
Yeah,
And
and then what
so
happened?
a very very prominent chief human resource officer, I put it on his profile, and I looked and he only had like one or two others. I think it was one or two others total on his profile. And I was so honored because he did post it. So apparently he thought it was good enough to post, and I put a
Yeah.
lot of work in it. I got some feedback from you, because and everything I said was true. I mean, I think the world of
Oh,
this
yeah.
guy. He does a great job, but making it so good. I thought that point you made is making it so good that they just kind of have to post it, kind of thing.
And now everybody who looks at his profile, who scrolls down to recommendations, because we're all very interested, is a nice
Yeah,
way of saying how nosy we've gotten, right? But like, we're very up in people's business on LinkedIn because we are here to be up in business, right? So we're
yeah,
always like scrolling down, let me see what people have said about them or recommendations that they've given. And for somebody as prominent as he is, to only have a few recommendations, yours is really standing out. And because you've attended my workshop, of course, it's standing out beyond even the other two that are already there. So people who are visiting his profile, they might be his peers, they might be also like heads of HR that really could use your help, and they don't even know about it. They're not even in the sales, frame of mind. They're not looking for solutions. They're just looking at one of their peers, and then they see this thing on his profile and they're like, I want someone like, I want that guy to talk about me. I want him to know me well enough. I want to have an experience with this person. Who is it? And so
yeah,
then
exactly,
you're getting those kinds of relevant eyes over to your profile as well.
absolutely. Okay, so we kind of got as far as thinking about the other person, thinking about some things that they
The
may
moment right before they entered into the
right
space.
before they entered.
And
Yeah,
then also like a moment before they would hire you. So creating that moment before they would hire you, not just the moment before your conversation. Unless this could also be, in a job interview when you're offering somebody a role, you're thinking about what are all the other roles that they're being offered right now, and what is one of my benefits that I can offer them that somebody else doesn't. So maybe it's not a big difference in pay, but I offer educational reimbursement, or I offer flexible time off, or I offer like fewer on-call days or something like that, or more but they're paid double or something like that. So you pick out the one benefit that you offer that is competitive for you, even if your whole package isn't. And if you build a moment around that specific benefit, that becomes then a bigger point of your conversation. You can't compete on all these other things, but if you build moments around the
yeah,
benefits that you do offer, then you can hit those in the conversation, and then those stories make that feel more prescient and more like right now.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a point that's gonna is very clippable. We're gonna clip this one, and I want to see what
Clip
my
me up.
audience see. The audience loves it. Okay, there's a couple of different. Okay, if there's any hiring managers, if there's any talent acquisition professionals, entrepreneurs who are looking to grow their team, I'm just. But the comment I want to make is from that lens, is that sometimes we think, oh, when I just put a job posting out there, and if more people see it, then I'm going to get more great applications. But that might not necessarily be the case. Because if I'm not truly thinking about what that person's going through before they pull up my posting,
Mm,
I'm going to ignore some very important key issues. Um, it's so often we look at the offerings that people or folks they're putting out there. They're putting out things like basically it's like a copy of the job description, right? Which
right.
is not usually appealing at all. They may add some benefits at the bottom, right? But it doesn't really speak to that person because if I have a lot of the same benefits where I am, and the job looks a lot like the where I am, what other compelling things are there that you could offer me that could speak to something that I might have been facing just before I
Right.
clicked the button, right?
People make
Uh,
decisions based on what their day feels like. You want to move
yes.
to a different whole job, you can't be speaking to, just a simple number.
Yeah.
If you, let's
Yeah.
say you are making a job description and you're trying to appeal to like a head RN, for example, and you think about what that person's job looks like just today. What are the stresses? What are the disappointments? What are the things that made him or her or they go, I really wish we had, but unfortunately, that's not the world we live in, right?
Yeah.
And that they just kind of take for granted as not possible in the industry, except where you are and what you're hiring for, you do make those things possible. Or you at least
Yeah.
create an environment where that kind of feedback is welcome. So tell those stories, tell the stories of those moments in your job descriptions. And you'll see, instead of just saying, here are your job requirements, build stories around the moments where those requirements live and give people a
Yes.
sense of what it feels like to go through them.
I love it. There's so many ways you can go with this. And when you're having those conversations about why folks, the qualified folks, aren't applying for this particular job, let's look at how we're speaking to that prospective candidate. What things are we talking about? And are those things relevant to them? Like, for instance, maybe a nurse, and this could be any person, maybe they just got passed over on a promotion.
Mm.
They're looking for a career progression, and they just don't see that things are moving there. And so, what if we decide to talk about how there's a lot of great career progression at this particular company?
Let's use that,
Showing,
but let's do it, right?
yeah,
Let's
okay,
create a
good, sure,
moment around that.
yeah,
Okay. So um, if you say we have lots of opportunities for career progression, probably so has the place where they currently are not experiencing a lot of career progression said that. So you need to prove it with a story. What does that look
yes,
like? So like tell me in your job description, people in this role previously, and here's an example of this. I'm working with the Philadelphia Cricket Club on their content for LinkedIn for employer branding. And if you scroll through and you'll see a thing that says be the next, they're hiring for a front desk receptionist role. And I have two former front desk receptionist headshots and their employee journeys and bullet points. Be the next. Perry Vendy and Amber, I think it's hard. So those two people and where they started and where they are now, both of them still working at the Philadelphia Cricket Club. And yet they're in completely different, one of them moved into events, one of them moved into payroll. And, then it shows underneath a couple of bullet points about the job, but it's really about like, we're not assuming that you come in wanting to be receptionist forever, but that's how
right,
you show career progression. So what does that
yes,
look like? Tell me the story of another nurse who started at this hospital or this organization who has moved up. What did it look like? Did they propose projects that they then owned? Did they have a mentor along the way with that project? How did they present it to the board? How were they measured on their performance? When was that reviewed? How long did it take from the point that they were hired to the point that they were offered an opportunity to show their unique value? And how long did it take from that point to the point where they were promoted? Tell us that story moment by moment, and we'll believe you.
Love that. And one of the things I'll add to that, one of the things we've done is when we're interviewing directors and sometimes CNOs of hospitals, we'll ask them kind of where did they get their start? Like how did they start? And we find out in some cases in those interviews, without us even knowing it ahead of time, that they started maybe as a unit secretary or they started maybe as a tech,
Yeah.
and now they're a director of a department or perhaps CNO of the hospital. And that's a real life example of what you're talking about okay, show me, okay, here's a
Yeah.
living breathing person that has actually made that progression, and we're talking to him right now. I love it. This is great. Anybody who's watching this, these are golden key moments when it comes to I think talent acquisition, growing your team. And let's talk about from the candidate standpoint. Let's say from a candidate standpoint,
Hmm.
how would they also think about the moments? I'm thinking. You got me thinking along these lines about the candidate experience. What are
Sure.
some ways that the candidate can think of the moment
Thinking about the
before?
employer experience.
Yeah,
So, what are some of the employers' top concerns? It's so hard to find good help these days, right? There's the concern that people don't want to work. There's the concern that people will leave. There's the concern, especially in healthcare right now, it's a tough place to keep people because it's so high stress, more than it ever has been before. I mean, it's always a high stress
yeah,
environment, but especially lately, hasn't it been for talent?
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
employers are seeing that a lot of their talent is is leaving for something else, is giving up, and so they have to address those moments of frustration when they're talking to those people. And candidates can be aware of this, and say,
Yes.
I know that you probably have seen higher turnover recently. I'm really looking for a home to grow in, and here's an example of a moment that I can envision at your organization. I see that you do these community outreach programs, and I volunteer, and I would be happy to go out and talk about vaccinations or talk about, different kinds of whatever your issues are that you share with the community, any kind of community education, and say, I imagine like seeing a single parent come with their two children, having a lot of questions, answering their questions and making them feel that the people at this hospital really have that expertise. And if this is a place where like that expertise is valued and where you want to empower your customers, I guess, or patients
Right.
with information, then I can see really finding a good long term fit for us here.
Absolutely. Uh, okay, so one of the things that you also made me think of as you're discussing this is from the hiring manager standpoint. They're thinking about, first of all, can this person do the job?
Hmm.
Can they fit within my team? And
Hmm.
will they stick?
Will they
The,
stick?
those are, and so I would imagine if a candidate kind of addressed that, if they can think about that ahead of time and address that as they're talking through that interview, things that speak to one of those two things is the
Right.
competency of doing the job. Can they fit within that team, and will they stick? You just helped me come. Thank you. So this is why you're a master coach. So you can bring things out that I didn't think about before. But I would think that if someone's looking for a job, if they can do that throughout the interview and they just keep it down to those 3 points, like,
Hmm.
and whatever I'm discussing, if it hits those 3 points, that's something I want to keep. If it's something
That's
that
right.
doesn't, I want to filter it out.
You can speak to moments in your experience, bring out the stories from your experience that will help the hiring manager go in their mind and bring up in their memory a moment where if only they had had someone like you in the role, they wouldn't have experienced that moment, right?
Yes. Yes.
So what
Ah,
if
that
it's
is
like
key.
getting along with people on the team, right? People bicker, they give responsibility away, or they say they don't have time for things. Imagine the moments that have not worked out well on teams you've already been on, or people who don't want to step up or don't want to cover for each other, and you can bring a story that contradicts that experience in a positive way, then you're speaking to a moment that this hiring manager knows they don't have to worry about with you.
Yeah. Yeah. You just created another clip for me. I love that.
A
Okay.
Let's just do this, make it visually easier for the
Yeah, I mean,
editor.
I like it, but I don't always know if the audience likes it. So that's why I like to also periodically check in with the audience. Of course, they like it too. Okay,
Yeah.
so I want to ask you this in terms of the moment before. Let's think of ways that we've talked about the hiring manager side, we talked about the candidate side. What about if we're speaking to a perspective? No, 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 not a perspective. What if speaking to someone who's like a higher up in the same organization, and we're
Hmm.
trying to share or sell a concept, if you will. Maybe it's some idea we have, and we're trying to share that particular idea with them because we want to get that next promotion. We want to
Hmm.
be recognized, and so what are some things we can think about in terms of the moment before when we're speaking to a superior when it comes to I say superior within the organizational level?
I know what you mean, just
Yeah,
hierarchically
yeah, exactly.
at a level above.
Yeah,
So if you think about how every single person has an audience and everybody reports to somebody, uh, that person's audience might be different than the people you initially spoke to. And their objectives might be different as well. So let's say you're talking to somebody who's got the word chief in front of their title. Now, they might have been scrolling through LinkedIn and seeing that people who are also chief something or other have just posted, I have been honored by whatever thing, and here I am on the cover of this magazine, or here I am as a guest panelist, or here I am speaking at this event. And so they're getting some recognition for things that the person you're about to speak to maybe hasn't done in a little while. They're not seen as the innovator in this moment. In this moment, the person that they've just scrolled past or hit like on, they are in that position. So you want to help them envision, what does it look like for you when you are the leader, when this hospital is mentioned in the news. And so thinking about, that kind of objective, that's and you can actually reinforce those moments by doing the research yourself and bringing that moment into the scene. So find a competitor, or somebody that is on their level in the industry to highlight and say, here's an example of somebody who's doing this really well. You could be like them. People are always inspired by that grass is
yes,
greener, what are other people doing, keeping up with the Joneses. But the reality is that in this economy and during this competitive market for hiring top talent and for holding on to top leadership positions, more is expected of you than ever. And that
yeah.
does include your personal brand. It does include being the face of an organization. And it does include being an innovator who's always willing to try things differently, or else you're going to be seen as, and you will be the one who's left behind.
Ooh, that is powerful, Lila. That's powerful because I was thinking about something else. These leaders. Let's just be real and transparent here. These leaders are not going to necessarily stay at the same organization forever. They're looking for career
Right.
progression too.
That's
And
right.
so it's like a older person I looked up to for a long time used to tell me it's better than a poke in the eye. If you give them a way to show other things that they've done during their career there, that can help them for that next promotion or whether it's going to be there or somewhere else. And so I never actually thought about it from that standpoint of when you're promoting this idea, how can we help them see how this can help progress them
That's right.
either within the organization or outside the organization, how it could help them progress. And a rising tide lifts all boats in this
That's
situation
right.
because if I help them, I'm going to be pulled up too.
That's right. You know what I'd love to see specifically? I want to see you speaking with Chief Human Resources Officer at, let's say, Aetna. And there we have, I don't even know who that person is. I'm sure it's somebody, right?
I don't know what
Go
this
and
is.
find on their LinkedIn profile what their history is and make a timeline. You remember doing timelines as a school project where you would say, like,
Yep.
started here and then, moved along and then create the rest of it. Create the moments ahead, not just the moment before, not just the moment of, but create the moments ahead and help them envision, now is seen as, global innovator in integrating video and social media into hiring operations.
Love that.
And like make an article and you like post it there.
I've never even thought that's never even crossed my mind before. Guys in the comments, let me know what you guys think of these ideas. I love it because okay, if I'm in a spot and I'm looking to get that career progression, not only should I be thinking about my career progression, I should be thinking about that person above me's career progression too, or at
That's
least
right.
whoever that target person is.
Hmm.
Um, what does that look like for them?
Especially if you
Because
want to move into their role. You have to
yeah,
give them something better to look at so that they're not threatened by you and your new ideas.
yeah, and so if I'm mapping that out, I can figure ways that I can help that person get there. And if I
Hmm.
help that person get there, whether they stay at this company or not, those accomplishments are still I'm still part of that,
Hmm.
and that will most likely put me in a position to get there as well. This
That's right.
is very powerful. I really appreciate that. Okay,
Yeah.
so I cannot believe how quickly the time is passing. We're getting close to the end,
Oh, yeah.
and I want to make sure I get your key points in here. So if I'm watching this, maybe I watched part of it, maybe I watched the whole thing, but I'm watching this about the moment before. What are some key things that I should keep in mind? Maybe the top two or three things I should keep in mind when implementing or executing on this concept.
Thinking about the moment before in kind of a worst case scenario gives you the opportunity to build the correct kind of transition space between where they have been and where they're going. But you have to imagine what that moment before was like, whatever that frustration was, in a specific moment, or you won't know how to solve for it. Otherwise, it's just general, and then you become, kind of talking in generalities about like the sales bullet points instead of to that person's experience. So, thinking about the specifics of a moment can keep you in the moment with them when you are relating what your solution is.
Yeah, that is key for sure. And by the way, John, our friend John is here. He says Lila Smith is chock full of ideas, amazing. And Joanne says
Thanks,
she's
John.
simply amazing as well.
Thanks, JC and JC.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. No, this has been very helpful for me, and I'm sure those who are watching. So, in terms of the next, because we've done the moment before the moment that we've been thinking about it, do you suggest? Because I know actors work off scripts, right? I know that.
Hmm.
But one of the things I notice about actors is that in the moment, when they're actually in the scene, there's obviously no scripts around. Some people have different thoughts on whether I should follow a script. Should I have my questions laid out? Should I not have them laid out? Should I commit them to memory? I'm curious when you're having those kind of conversations, important conversations. Is it something that they should be scripting out and rehearsing ahead of time, like an actor? Is it something they should have some notes, some key points? What should that look like in terms of the preparation and just the execution?
Yeah, I do think you should script things out to rehearse them and feel comfortable saying things. Over time, when you just become, like you are an expert in your field, the questions become natural because you know what you're talking about. At some point, you have to trust that you are the expert and not feel like you have to script out your answers to things. But if there are questions you want to make sure that you ask, then give yourself a bullet point and make sure that you're comfortable asking those things, but especially if they're nuanced or they use very technical language that you're not experienced with, that you get comfortable so that you sound like the visiting expert rather than stumbling over something so simple that could have been avoided. But in terms of preparing for a conversation, you cannot ever know what's going to come up on the other side because you don't have their script. So you can be as prepared as you want with a set of questions, but if the questions that you have no longer pertain to what the information is that you're getting from the other person, from their script, from their improvisation, and from the connection between the two of you, then it feels disconnected to be in a script that no longer applies. So you have to read the scene that you're in and understand the other character and what they're after, the other person, and bring them with you and allow yourself to be brought with them as well.
Love that. Okay, if just in your observations, just in your time, whether it's been on network television or in a movie
In
or
the
whatever the
theater.
case is, in
Yeah.
the theater, if it's someone who we may be familiar with, who do you think does this extremely well? Like they do the moment before the moment, extreme, like just to a master level, and maybe we've seen the end product, we just didn't know how
Yeah, let
much
me try to think
preparation was
about
there.
oh gosh, I mean, it's so cliche to say Meryl Streep, but if you look at her walking through the hall in The Devil Wears Prada, you know where she's coming from. And and you know that she had to gather herself into that moment. You know, we see throughout that movie that she has experienced turmoil at home in her personal life. But when you walk into a scene that she's already in, or she comes in, you know that she has been in character in a whole world before that moment began. And she really does it. She really does it. She really does it.
That yes, that's a for I instantly resonate with that example because I watched
Mm-hmm.
that movie actually several times, and
Oh, who
her
hasn't? Yeah.
yeah, her performance is amazing on there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just the little intricate moments, like even like okay, you just put one in my head where when she walks in the room, she takes her coat, she just throws it on the desk and
Right.
continues to walk inside her office. Now I know that's not probably Meryl Streep herself was probably not like that.
Of course not. No, actually, I've met her, but not in an acting capacity. I actually was helping her when 100 years ago when I worked in retail, and she was very nice. Couldn't have been lovelier.
Yeah. So she had to put herself in the like the moment before the moment. Okay, because in the movie it shows what her home life is like. It's actually not good, and so
Imagine, imagine being that person who has all of this pressure as the head of a magazine, and you've got people coming after your job from other, who are younger and chic and maybe less expensive, than you. And at home, you've got all this pressure to be this great mother of twins, by the way, and with a husband who can't handle being with a very powerful woman. I mean, and then you go into the office and you have so much that's riding on you just to be successful and to provide jobs and opportunities for thousands of people. The last thing that you want is one more second with this jacket. It's like, get everything off of me so that I don't even have the second it takes to get this off of me. And I think
right.
a lot of women who are watching this will relate to that. It's like the second that you get home and you take your bra off, it's like, I need to be able to function. And this thing is in my way, or anybody taking your shoes off. We all do it. We all kick our shoes off when we've come in from the outside and you've got mud on them, right? Imagine that mud is the weight of all of your personal responsibilities outside of this office. How fast do you think you want to get that coat off?
This is another. I'm getting another coaching moment. And I don't know if you even realize you're giving it to me, but the way you kind of help. I love it, the way you're kind of imagining because, and I do this to some point. Like let's say if a deal goes bad or if a deal doesn't go well, I like to do kind of like what's kind of like Scott Love calls it an autopsy. I'll just go back and see okay where did things
we could say
break down.
Audit.
Yeah. Audit. Think it's better. Thank you.
Yeah.
But what I like is that you're mentioning doing this in advance. You're doing it before the moment, thinking about all the things that person's going through.
That's
to
right.
prepare better instead of trying to audit it from the back end. So
That's
much
right.
better if we actually took the time to fully imagine this from the front end. And so I thank you for that lesson.
Imagine being that person who's her assistant and simply having the coat thrown at you. That moment is about you. Unless you have done the moments before for her, unless you have imagined everything she's gone through before she's about to walk in and throw that coat at you, then you make it about you instead of about she needs things to just go the way that they have to go. And if I can just be a little piece, if I can just be the oil between the cogs that makes things run smoothly, think about the impact that has on the other side. One less tiny little detail that has to stop her from making her potential impact.
Yeah. This was an amazing session today for me, guys. I want to just see what the audience thinks about it because I thoroughly enjoyed it. Hope you guys did. Look at that. They're always impressed. And this is how I feel.
I love that dance. Well,
Yeah,
I
so it's
always
been
feel
great,
that way
Lila.
when I get to talk to you. So thank you for letting me explore this part of my background and apply it towards scenarios that can really impact your audience as well.
Absolutely. We got lots of great clips we're going to make out of this. Guys in the comments, let us know what resonated with you. What did you enjoy about today's session? See, I got so excited I popped my headphones out. But let us know what you're what you enjoyed about from today's session. Tag somebody else in here and give us a like and a clap and all that kind of stuff if you liked it. Appreciate you guys watching today. Let's say bye to everyone. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, then and then Joanne will she'll get us cut off here in a second. Boy, that was great,
Right.
Lila.
Thanks.
Man.
It's been 4 years since I've gotten